terms towards Reconstruction to
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Reconstruction.
There we go.
For Reconstruction in chapter 23.
Gilded Age. Oh yeah, Gilded. G-U-I. There you go. E-G. Yeah.
H.
Cool.
Are not of rich people.
Hold on. What did you say, Wilkins? Freeman's Bureau. Don't worry about this spelling. Yeah. You mean about a marker? Let's try this one. This should be. Oh, you know what? That black one works on the table. There. That black one's perfect. Yeah. There you go. B-U-R-E-A-U. Yeah. Any names come to mind during the time period? Andrew Johnson. Good. Ulysses S. Grant. You can just put Grant down. Yeah, always been perfect. Was Lincoln part of the Gilded Age, though?
No.
Remember, he's already shot in the head. Sorry. That's something you all should know. Compromise of 1877 is something that's really important. Melody, what was that? Why is that such an important event?
Because the South supports the previous to be the president, and also as return the president's ability to pull out the troops from the South.
Yeah. It ends Reconstruction. It ends it. Which we'll talk into a little bit more after we finish this list.
What about the racial problem?
Black hole.
You know what the term is called? Race separation. There's a term they like to use. Segregation is the definition, yes, but there's a term they use in U.S. history to describe the. It's similar to. It's called black codes, but it's similar to black codes. It's called. Anyone have an idea? Jim Crow. There you go. Yep. Jim Crow laws. Yeah. It's quite similar to black codes. It's quite similar to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Slaughterhouse case.
Slaughterhouse case. Oh wow, court case. Okay. Cool. G. No, you got it right. Yeah. That's. I'm so bad with spelling. T-H-E-R. And then the house. Slaughterhouse. I'm so bad with spelling. Slaughterhouse case. You want to explain that for a moment? Slaughterhouse case. Big J.
Make a distinction between national citizenship and state citizenship.
Okay, cool. Once again, it distinguishes between state citizenship and national citizenship. State versus national. In my wallet right now, I have a state ID card. I'm a citizen of Connecticut. That's my flag in the back. I'm also a citizen of the United States. That's my flag in the back. Robert E. Lee is a good example. Robert E. Lee, during the war, fought for Virginia, not for America. Fought for Virginia, his home state, not for America. He had a choice to make. Do I fight for the Union or the Confederacy? He went with his state versus the nation. He didn't go with the United States of America. He went with the state of Virginia and the Confederacy. Most people, when they think about where they're from in America, they always talk about their state, not their country so much. Even to this day, like when I talk about where I'm from, I grew up in Connecticut. But you're American. I'm like, yeah, I'm an American. I grew up in Connecticut. Same thing, same but different. Like, I grew up in the States, yes, but I grew up in Connecticut, my home state. So even to this day, people, hey, where you from? New York. Where you from? California. Where you from? Vermont. Where you from? You rarely hear people say it, United States. Unless they may be overseas, it might change a little bit, you know. Especially me, like, where are you from? I'm from Connecticut. Is that in Africa? No. It's in, no. Anything else? We'll figure out the year, but yep, civil rights of 18 something. We'll figure out the year. Thank you, 1866. Thank you.
6.
2 sixes, yeah. All right, let's stop there. That's a good list. That's a good list. Now, chapter 23 is about. Thank you so much, madam. Thank you. Chapter 23 is about the Gilded Age. Now, when you think about the Gilded Age, the term gilded it looks pretty good on the outside. Like if you were a foreign person looking at America in the 1870s, America is a wonderful place to be. Does anyone know why America is a wonderful place to be if you're a foreigner looking outside in? What's happening in America during this time period where it makes it like very interesting to want to be in America? A lot of jobs because of what? Industry is booming. America is becoming a #1 country in terms of industry. It will eventually outperform Britain, where the British were #1. They were the first to do it. America is going to go beyond Britain in the near future during this time period. So people are coming to America like hotcakes. Who's coming to America? Chinese are coming to America. We finally get introduced to the Chinese. Wow, they exist. Ooh, they exist. Guys, this is really easy. One of the few rules I have in here is just silence, guys. It's an easy rule. All right? So, the Chinese are coming in. The Japanese are beginning to come in. Now, once again, why are the Chinese and Japanese beginning to come into America? Partly, it's the introduction of trading between America and these countries. Yes. The railroad is the key for Chinese people. Like the Chinese are going to come to America to be the cheap labor force to build the railroads in the western part of the country. And which makes sense. If you look at a map and you say to yourself, why did the Chinese come to the western part of America and not the eastern part of America in the 1860s and 70s? It's closer, yeah. It just makes sense. You're a poor Chinese person looking for a job opportunity. You're not going to sail all the way around South America and end up in New York City. That'd be stupid. So what do? You end up on the West Coast. Now look what's happened, right? The Chinese own California, right? Think about it. They own UC Davis, UC Irvine. They own them all now, right? Seriously. I showed my students last year like a UC video, and they broke down the percentage of Asian people who go to these schools. Dude, seriously, the UC system is owned and operated by China. Really, like, dude, Like almost every campus has at least like 20, 30, 50% Chinese, Asians, I should say, Asians who go to that school. So it's amazing how the West Coast is dominated by Asians. But it makes sense though. If you're poor and you could buy a one-way ticket to America and you're coming from Asia, it makes a lot of sense. The cheapest flights are to LA or Seattle or San Francisco or San Diego or Portland, not to New York, Boston, Philadelphia. This makes sense. All right, so the Gilded Age, it looks really good on the outside, but it's really crappy on the inside. Why is it crappy on the inside? What happens when you arrive into America? Discrimination is rampant. Nativists, white Americans, begin to pretty much hate anyone who comes into the country who's not like them. Chinese, Japanese, heck, African Americans. Anyone who's not like them, they begin to discriminate against. If you're British, you're good to go, right? Because you look and sound quite similar. Other peoples, quite frankly, sadly, are going to be attacked because of their ethnicity. Now, you talked about corruption, political corruption, right? There's a name that no one brought up, actually, that's associated with political corruption on this board. He's definitely associated with political corruption during this time period. Boss Tweed. Boss Tweed is well known in New York City as probably the most corrupt politician in its history. Most likely. I think, to be honest, yeah, you can give him that title. The most corrupt politician in New York City history. Stole millions, allegedly. I mean, we don't know the extent, but he probably bribed everyone he could, including immigrants who came off the boat. Hey, you want a job? Vote for me. Like, hey, you want a job? Vote for me. Like, bribed everyone to win. Boss Tweed is just infamous for being the poster child of corruption in local politics. What did China do to get rid of corruption in politics? Or what is it trying to do to get rid of corruption in politics? What does it do?
Dismiss them.
When you say dismiss them, what do you mean by dismiss?
Execute,
right? Yeah, like, right? Yeah, like we didn't execute people, but if you go back in Chinese history and you think about administrative peoples in Chinese government and so forth, how did they try to make administrative officers better? What did they do to make administrative officers better?
more money.
That's part of it, yeah.
Secret police.
And part of it, yeah.
Family.
Part of it.
Raise their salary.
As I said, money is part of it, yeah. Like, you make more money, you're more productive. That's true, yeah. That happens in everything, though.
Set up on task.
Thank you. They design tests to see if you're qualified. Because of Boss Tweed and the corruption that happens in the Gilded Age, eventually what's going to be set up is testing. Guess where the Americans got the idea from?
AP test.
Guess what the politicians got the idea for administrative testing?
China.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
They got it from China, yeah. Yeah. They got the idea from China. They said, hey, the Chinese are doing it, how come we can't do it? Like, see where the idea from. Okay, let's see here. You put up here Grant. How's he associated with this Gilded Age? He is the president during the time period. That's true. How did he actually get into office? How was he elected? War hero. Yeah. Yeah. He's got no political experience whatsoever. Reminds me of someone, right? He's got no political experience whatsoever. But he's a war hero. That's how he got into office. Did they go into detail what happens while he's in office? Did you have to read about it or listen to it? Does anyone have an idea what happens to Grant while he's in office? It gets so bad under his administration that they actually began to call it Grantism. His administration was so corrupt, they actually coined the term Grantism. It got that bad. The funny thing is this, Grant had no involvement with the scandals. The people he hired were the ones who were doing it. So, war hero who did not know how to govern well. Guess what happened in his re-election? Actually, he won. He won. That war hero part helps him get through the finish line. But scandal after scandal in his administration, you see why people begin to distrust government. It's happening at the highest level, in the White House. And it's trickling down to other parts of American political society. National level, state level, local level. So this Gilded Age, once again, it's a horrible time period for politicians. People begin to distrust their politicians completely because of this time period. Let's go back to race. What's happening to African Americans? Let's start with them. Segregation is happening to them. What else is happening? Why is segregation and discrimination happening to African Americans? Aren't they freed under the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments of the Constitution? Aren't they now full citizens? Like, don't they have the same rights and privileges as every other American on the planet there? What's the problem? Say that again, please? Thank you. I mean, sadly, that's the problem. Not only for African Americans, but Asian Americans too. Remember I told you if you're not white, if you're white, it's all right. I realized actually I stole that from someone too, by the way. I plagiarized. So I'm going to give credit where credit's due. There's a comedian named Chris Rock who said that. So I'm going to give credit where credit's due. But he was right. If you're white, you're all right. If you're Asian, if you're African American, if you're Japanese, like, dude. So the sad thing is discrimination happens. Racism happens. What is the extreme level of racism that happens towards African Americans? Killed by who? Not some police, sadly, is today. Sadly, that's happening today. So you're like 100 years ahead of me. KKK. Yeah. KKK, you can make the argument, was the first terrorist organization in the United States. Their sole purpose is to terrorize African Americans. That's what your job is to do. Terrorize African Americans. That's their sole purpose. And they do pretty well at it too. They're pretty good at it. Go back to the Compromise of 1877. Can anyone explain to me what's happening there?
It's an election between K and someone start with T.
Tilden, yep.
They individually represent the Republican and Democratic
Hayes, yep. So, Angel describes the situation between Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel Tilden. It was a close election. There was no clear winner. So the Democratic Party, which was a Southern political party, decides to concede to the Republican Party if and only if they remove the troops from the South. Why were the troops